So I'm sure I was immediately just doing bum 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 bum
Woo!
bum 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 bum, trying to end it with X-Men. Da, 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 X-Men, trying to
Oh, I hear you. I
like
hear you.
that in a way. Yeah, it's a good thing there was no lyrics on that. Thank God. Because it doesn't lend itself to it.
I'm all, I'm all grown up.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is a legendary musician who has scored over 2,900 episodes of television. A man who used to sleep with a vinyl record instead of a teddy bear. A man who taught Betty White to play the drums. A man who played one of the most legendary guitar riffs of all time on a piano, and it was so clean, it even fooled Eddie Van Halen. You may know him as Aaron Waters or even as the Mighty Raw. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Ron Wasserman.
Hello, everybody. How you doing out there?
Hey, how's it going today, man?
Very, very good. Very good.
Were you aware that there is another musician named Ron Wasserman?
Yes, and he's New York.
Yes.
He plays a bass in the orchestra, and we met like 15 years ago.
That's amazing.
Because he received a check that was meant for me, and so he said, "Hey, my name's Ron Wasserman," and we've been friends ever since.
That's the exact question I was going to ask: was there ever a check mix-up? Because there's no way that there wouldn't have been. So
I had it was that story not even worth getting into what I had to go through with it. But ironically, his I'm now divorced, but his wife's name is Kathy. My wife's name was Kathy. And he and I are born, like, if I remember correctly, within 6 months of each other.
I wonder if one of you is part of like the Ron Wasserman multiverse and is just in the wrong timeline.
It's the East Coast version of me.
That's what's
I'm an
up,
LA
man.
boy. Yeah, I know. It's funny.
There we go. So it's true that you used to sleep with a vinyl record, correct?
Yep. But I slept with records instead of stuffed animals. And my mom told me that when I was a kid, that, I didn't, or as an adult, and I didn't really believe it. And then I found a picture of me with my cousins, and I'm holding a 45.
Wow.
So it's the truth.
Did you know how to actually like play records on a record player at that point in time?
Yeah, she had already said I was in the crib trying to get to the radio and to a record player.
Wow.
So
okay.
I knew how to do that. Yeah.
So you were born for this, man.
I was born for it. It's in my DNA.
So is it true that you had when you started playing piano early on, you had a piece published in a book when you were 5?
Yeah, I wrote a piece called Ronnie's Song. It was a finger exercise thing. And yeah, apparently I got ripped off, but
oh no,
it made it into finger exercise books. I remember my piano teacher, Mr. Arluck, saying, "Yeah, it's going to be in books." I'm like, "Fun."
Well, where's the check, baby?
Yeah, where's the book?
It probably went to the New York Ron Wasserman.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have to check with him.
So you were a smart enough student that you skipped grades. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got pushed ahead 2 years. So I can't remember if I went from kindergarten to third or first to fourth or how it works. But I know when I started high school, I was 13. So for all of you out there that think that's cool, it's not good to be 2 years younger than everybody in high school. It's not good.
I bet.
Not good at all.
I think I was 13 when I started high school as well, but I didn't skip any grades. I wasn't that smart. I don't know. Maybe
you must have started much earlier then. Yeah.
Maybe. And then I heard that you were in high school. You were cutting a lot of class to play the piano, which is dope. I cut a lot of class too, but it was mostly just to cruise with my boys and get up to no good. I wasn't doing anything productive. When you were cutting class to play piano, were you doing that solo or did you have homies that would come and jam out with you?
No, it was just solo. They had the auditorium and they had a grand piano stored off under a cabinet, and I had keys to the whole school because I was on sound crew. So I would just cut class. I'd go in there. The drama teacher who sometimes held classes knew I was there. Everybody was cool with it. And I just pulled the piano out and I would just play and play and play and then go to lunch, hang out with my friends, then go back and play and play and play. Sometimes I wouldn't go to classes for 5 weeks. They knew where I was. I'd show up and they'd say, "You got to take this test, so study for it." I would, I'd pass. Only one teacher failed me for doing it. He said, "You haven't been here for 5 weeks." I said, "I'm on campus. Everybody knows where I am."
Oh, come on, man. Being the one guy that failed you, son of a bitch.
Yeah, he was a prick.
Yeah, we all got him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've heard you mention that in your life there were multiple music teachers that were unhappy with you because you didn't want to do things their way per se. So I'm curious, were those music teachers that were in school, like part of orchestra and stuff like that, or were these people that you were actually actively seeking out outside of school just to better your skills?
They were mostly when I was very young, and we were poor, so we had at no disrespect to these guys, but the least expensive music teachers there were. And what they would do is they'd say, today we're going to learn this classical thing, and I'd say, can you play it for me? And I'd record it. I had a little cassette recorder, and then I would just ear it out. I can't read music and play. I can listen and read music. And then I would put my own little twist on things, and they didn't like that. They said, it's my way or the highway. And so I took the highway. And then in junior high, I played clarinet in orchestra for 1 or 2 years, and that was great. No trouble there because it's a whole group of people. They weren't just focusing, and
Right.
It was simple what I was doing. High school, we already discussed. Then I tried to take a couple of music theory classes in college and was asked to leave because I knew how to do it naturally, but I resisted. I didn't want that training stuck in my head. I didn't want any influence.
Yeah.
It was just something I tried. So they also said, maybe you should go.
Wow. Isn't it so crazy that in such a creative field that there can be folks that are so rigid and can hinder creativity, or at least attempt to?
Yeah, I really wonder if anything would be different if I was 7 years old with one of these instructors and they would have said, okay, screw the classical, write something, and then we're going to learn how to actually notate everything out. Instead, just go ahead and write a piece and we'll notate it out. So, but unfortunately, they didn't mean to be so rigid. It was just their thing.
Just the way it was, especially at the time.
Just the way it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, speaking of college, I heard that you were originally interested in photography as a career. I'm curious, were you very good at it? And is it still something that you do for fun?
I was good at it in high school. I was also the high school photographer. Another way to get around it.
For the yearbook?
Yeah, for the yearbook and the football team and the cheerleaders.
Hey.
The best. Yeah. And then I put together a portfolio and I sent it off to this place called California Institute of the Arts in Valencia.
Oh, hell yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they accepted me. I didn't know how we were going to pay for it, but they accepted me. And then I spent a year there, and that's where I got my ass kicked and realized that, yes, I am a very slightly above average photographer. And I ended up, it's college, so everything's spread out. But after a year, I said, I'm going to leave. I'm out of money. And they said, you should pursue music. You're spending all your free time when you're not in the darkroom. You're in the ballet studio playing piano all day. And I said, yeah, maybe I should pursue it. But I had no idea how to do it. Not a clue.
So was at that point then you left? That's when you started looking to join bands from ads that you read in the newspaper. Is that correct?
Exactly. And I would join it. And I was in some real quirky stuff at the beginning, but I started writing more and more and kind of trying to produce, and, dealing with 5 other musicians sometimes is a nightmare. Sometimes dealing with one is.
Yeah. Facts.
So I did that, and then was in more bands in the 80s, almost got signed a few times. And then this gal, E.G. Daly, who was Pee Wee Herman's girlfriend, saw me with another band, came up and say, hey, do you want to be in my band? And I went, absolutely. Because she was signed to A&M Records. And her little hit song, If You Want My Love, Say It, was just coming out. And the band was killer. I cannot remember the guitar player, but I'm still friends with the bass player, Matt Bissonette, who's played with Elton John and all everywhere. And Matt Sorum on drums that went on the Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I heard the story about your little Guns N' Roses missed opportunity where if he had met you like 2 weeks prior, he was looking for a keyboardist.
Yeah, they were looking for one and they gave the gig to somebody else. And I remember, I'm piss poor. Really till the mid-90s. Yeah. And living on credit cards. And I remember I'm driving down Sunset Boulevard in probably an old beat-up Dodge Colt. And there's this beautiful Porsche and it's Matt, and I just wave him over. He's like, dude. He goes, oh man, 2 weeks ago I could have got you the gig. It's so easy and it pays $25,000 a week. And I'm like,
fuck, 25 G's a week?
Yeah. I mean, they had their own plane at that point, What year was this? Was this like about 88 when Sweet Child of Mine came out? No, because Matt joined the band later and had already been in for a bit. So think maybe it was 92 or 93.
Okay, so you were already at Saban.
Yeah, I was already at Saban.
Okay. Did the band with E.G. Daily, like, was there a name or was it just like E.G. Daly's backing band?
No, it was E.G. Daily.
Okay.
Period.
Period. Dope.
Yeah, that was it.
The songs that you guys recorded, are they out there?
I was only playing live with her.
Oh, you were only playing live. Okay.
Yeah, she had all studio musicians, and it was produced by a guy named Jellybean Benitez, I think. And,
Okay.
It was just a cute little thing. And then we were going to go do Saturday Night Live and then go to Europe and tour. And she decided to do Saturday Night Live as a solo act. And I believe, if I remember correctly, she decided to run out into the audience to interact with them while singing, but she didn't tell anybody. So she ran into the dark. All I know is next week, they called the following Monday, her manager, and said, everything's on hold right now.
Oh, shit.
And I think she was dropped.
Okay.
And I don't know why. Plus, the label knew her real passion was to be an actress.
Right.
And she killed it.
She would go on to be a legendary one.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
What a gig.
I'm saying, man.
A baby's gotta do what a baby's gotta do.
In 1989 is when you get the call from Saban to fill in for an engineer and mix for a composer. And that was because of a guy you played with named Ron Keenan. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Ron and I had been in a couple of those 80s bands together. So we were friends, and I was producing. He had a home studio, and I was producing singers and co-writing with anybody who had $100.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, my first question there is, at what point along the way did you learn engineering and mixing? Because that's a whole separate skill set.
Oh, all through the 80s. I would do anything. I would meet people through people who had what was for them, a 8 or a 16 track home studio.
Yeah.
And I would kind of just learn to park myself at their houses. I remember I told this story recently. I'd forgotten about it. Like, this guy had a home studio and he hands me a bag. He goes, I need you to go to this address. He's going to give you another bag. And I'm like, all right. What? Apparently I was doing drug runs. I was a mule.
Get out of here.
And then I'd come back and the guy would be like, all right, cool. Go ahead, hang out in the studio. I would just pull up his tracks on, which was one 24 track machine, and just screw around on the board and started learning how to mix.
Wow.
There was no internet yet, so you couldn't go look at YouTube video. None of that existed. You had to have hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And then I did stuff at Ron's house, and then he called me in to engineer. And again, I know I'm talking about money a lot. It's just what I went through to get to that point.
Yeah.
This is never about the money. But I went into that session, and that guy made $450 to work an hour, even though I spent 8 hours with him. We just screwed around for 7 hours.
Yeah.
And I went, I need to learn about this business. So I stayed at Saban every moment that nobody was working there. They let me in there. And then they hired me part-time to start mixing for the composers. Then they brought me in full-time to mix for the composers. And I started submitting pieces of music, and couple of the producers there were wonderful. They just reamed me and broke me. I get notes back. You're still writing songs. Stop it. This is scoring. This is how you score.
Sure. A little bit different.
I kept trying to do stuff. I would submit stuff that they said, too fast. We don't go that fast. Stop with the high speed, anything, even if it was rock or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in came X-Men, and when X-Men started, and Ron was involved with that theme too. But when that theme was done, from that day forward, I had 2 1-week breaks until June of 2018. I mean,
Holy
it was
shit.
just constant work.
Yeah.
It was
man.
crazy.
Okay, so I'm definitely going to get into that. I want to rewind for a second of when you first got to Saban. At that point, you're in pretty serious credit card debt. And I'm curious, what was your mindset at the time in terms of, you're going there? Did you have any self-imposed deadlines like, okay, well, I'm in a bad situation, and if I don't start making money from music by XYZ time, it's time to consider a career change? Or were you just all in, like, this is happening for me no matter what?
All in, this is happening for me no matter what. I know it's in me. I've been doing it my whole life, and I'm going to find a way in this door. This is the best place for me to go, because the band thing, after a decade of, I'll go talk to the record company, and again, not ever getting anywhere with it, it seemed like this is an opportunity to at least make a living.
Yeah. I love it.
And I loved it. I never in a million years would have thought I would have ended up in kids TV. And of course, it's been a lot since, but never, ever. So it was, I'm all in, whatever it takes, 24/7.
That's what I like to hear, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about X-Men. Is it true that after X-Men, you became the only composer at Saban?
Yeah, they had Haim Saban's partner, Shuki Levy, was still doing some stuff at home, but he backed off. Everybody started backing off. And yeah, I was their guy. Anything they needed, I did. They may have had a couple guys in another country, maybe doing some stuff now and then.
Right.
But I never met them. But yeah, I was doing everything.
You were the guy. Okay. Now I've heard that the X-Men track was a mixing nightmare, that you had 46 tracks. And I'm curious, is that something that after that experience became more commonplace for you, or was that an anomaly?
There's been other experiences that have been equally difficult. There was a show called Dinosaur. I can't remember the name. Dino Squad. And I wrote the first theme and I said, I know this is the theme. And I ended up writing 25 more. And then they went back to the first one. So that was a month of difficulty.
Wow.
And a lot of weird stuff. No, but on everything else that I've written, they may have a few notes. It's never been that way ever again. That X-Men theme was a beast.
No pun intended.
It was a beast to score that thing.
That's what's up, man. I heard that, of course, like you didn't grow up reading the comics, so you weren't familiar with the X-Men property, and you had a friend give you a little breakdown of what it was like. But I'm curious, do you remember if anything in particular inspired that fucking incredible riff? I mean, that riff that's like, for us, that's like adrenaline through the roof. I mean, as you're well aware, it's transcended generations, where even now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and TV and in movies, that's how we know, yeah, X-Men are coming through.
That's my strongest point. I'm not like an amazing player. I'm a really great writer, and my strongest point is melodies and the hook that brings you in. So when Ron, I remember he did a variation and kind of went, maybe we should do a digga from a thing he had with another band he was in.
Right.
And whenever I hear stuff like that, the melodies just fly. So I'm sure I was immediately just doing bum 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 bum, trying to end it with X-Men, da 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 da, X-Men. Trying to.
Oh, I hear you. I hear
that
you.
In a way.
Wow, man.
Yeah, it's a good thing there was no lyrics on that. Thank God, because it doesn't lend itself to it. And then, yeah, it was developing the track around it. And since it was really the first time I had something that was going to go, there was a lot of notes and a lot of people involved with it.
Right.
And ultimately, it ended up being great. I wish I would kill to have the very first, what I thought would be the complete mix or version.
Yeah.
I would love to know how different it was. I can't really remember anymore.
Oh, man. What a shame.
I have none of that stuff.
In November 2021, on Instagram, you posted that you were going to try to convince Disney to bring you back for X-Men 97. And I have heard no updates since then. So are there any to share with us?
Unfortunately not. My contact at Disney said, it's all Marvel. We don't even know who's doing it. Good luck.
Wow. That's so suckish, man.
It so sucks.
Yeah.
And I think by now, it's May, it's coming out in fall. I think by now I would already know if I was doing it. So There's been nothing. And a few other people who worked at Marvel said they were having a meeting, the writers, and I brought your name up and they said, oh yeah, we know who he is. But that's all they said. So Marvel has its machine, and I'm sure whoever ends up doing it, it'll be fantastic for the show.
For sure. No, it definitely
or it'll
will.
suck and they'll call me to fix it.
Did you go to theaters to watch Into the Multiverse?
No. I'll be honest with you. I watch I like watch a little bit of television. I occasionally get addicted to something like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or whatever.
Right.
But that's, but I only watch it 5-10 minutes before I go to sleep.
But people, of course, were sending you clips right after that moment happened, I'm sure.
Our final member.
Yeah. And they said, they used it. And then I hear that the melody kick in, and I just went, wow. it's gone that far.
Well, let me tell you, man, like being in the theater, that place erupted when the melody came on. I was probably the loudest one, but that place erupted because that moment does not carry the same significance without that tune, right? Of course, you're excited.
Right.
You see Professor X roll in, but when you see Professor X roll in, and it's and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, really flattering. And how lucky am I?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So Xma happens, and then very next year in 1993 would come arguably the most important moment of your career, Power Rangers.
Yep.
So they come in and they say that Go Go Gadget was the inspiration. They liked that keyword. It got them success before. Go, Gadget, go! Was that the only guidance that you got? They said, go to work?
Yeah. They said, we need a theme tomorrow. See if you can bang something out.
Wow.
And I was I remember I was kind of pissed because I had planned to not work for them that night in the studio. I was writing a song with for my band Fisher, which I really wanted to work on that night. So I think I felt like, I want to work on that. Okay, I'll blow this theme out.
Yeah.
So from the time, because I worked at night when all the executives left, I never wanted to be there when they were all there during the day. And so it took 2.5 hours. It just... Man. The riff came out, the whole thing came out. I went, this sounds cool. And the next day they called. Go, Power Rangers! They said, Fox loves it. And I said, so who should we get to sing it? And they said, staying as is.
Boom.
You don't understand. When the client loves it, you don't touch it.
Man.
So that mix was done, like the whole thing, in just 2.5 hours. And it's the first thing I sang on ever.
And that includes the vocals, the 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. Many people who are fans of yours have heard the story about gargling ice cold Pepsi to make your vocals raspy.
Yeah.
When did you discover that?
That night, because I had to sing it.
No way.
And my voice wasn't quite, plus I couldn't hit, those harmonies are sky high on that chorus. And actually, when I listen now, they're a little bit flat, but that's fine. But yeah, I couldn't get my chords tightened up enough. And then I thought, well, maybe if I gargle, and I was too lazy, I don't like tea or coffee.
Yeah.
So I had a Diet Pepsi with ice in it in a cup. I said, well, let me just gargle this. It's right here. And I just felt things tighten up, and all of a sudden I could hit those notes, and it changed the timbre of my voice a little bit. And it worked on everything I did. Plus it eliminated some of the pain because I sing through my throat.
Yeah.
Completely wrong. That's how I get the sound.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my sinuses will swell up, my eyes are watering, but it's very unattractive, but I get that sound.
Listen, we all have to suffer for our art.
Yeah, that's my suffering. Oh, poor me.
Man, I feel as though Pepsi owes you a sponsorship, man. You should be in a Pepsi commercial telling that story.
Yeah, I should gargle and sing.
All right, we're gonna put that into the universe when we release this podcast. Pepsi, make a commercial where Ron gargles and sings.
Please.
Let's talk about aliases. I heard both that Aaron Waters was an alias you came up with to argue with yourself, and I also heard that it was hatched up because Saban said that they didn't want it to seem like there was only one person doing all the music. Are both of those things true?
Well, Aaron Waters, my middle name is Aaron, and Wasserman, it means waterman. So Aaron Waters became the singer.
Right.
And so when I was producing myself and not getting the performance I want, I would yell at that character. I know this makes me sound crazy. And so Aaron was the singer, and then I was at the board as the producer listening. So it's what I did. It was kind of for fun, but it worked. But still, one day, that guy, Ron Wasserman, came up. He said, we've decided on a name that we want to release everything under, the Mighty Raw, which are my initials. And I said, don't. I said, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate it. But they did it. And then it really confused everybody after that.
I bet.
I've never liked that Mighty Raw shit. It's awful.
It confused the shit out of me, I'll be honest with you. As a little kid, when you're watching Power Rangers, you're not really aware of everything behind the scenes. And when you get older and the internet comes out, you're like, all right, I want to research all my favorite stuff. You see a few different names, and I was like, who the fuck is the Mighty Raw? Like, I'm trying to find...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they may have also done it because, they really tried to keep me hidden. Like when there were times I was there in the late afternoon, if any of the execs were coming in or in the afternoon, they would tell me, go have lunch, because they knew if the network people met me, they might say, hey, we have another show, because that's how everything works. Are you interested in submitting? And Saban wanted to keep me kind of hidden and under lock and key.
Devious.
Yeah, well, that was
the name of the game.
That's how it goes. It's what Hans Zimmer does as well. But Hans Zimmer does eventually introduce his composers to the film companies, and they go on, some of them, that have amazing careers.
Right, right. The point you bring up there brings me to another question, that is, I read that you were not hired to score the Power Rangers movie because Saban feared that you were going to become way more popular and thereby way more expensive. Is that true?
No, they weren't worried about that. They wanted to put, just like the show, Haim and Shuki wanted to put their name on as composer.
Yeah.
And 20th Century Fox said, we don't do that. We're union, not non-union.
Whoa.
And they said, well, if we can't do that, we can't have Wasserman's name on it. Everybody's going to know who's really been doing this shit. I mean, I had already scored 3 scenes. Fox loved it. And so their excuse was, we need somebody better to score the film.
I'm shocked, man. That's not the response. Oh my God. Holy shit. That's horrible.
It's what Cross My Line and I Will Win are about. It's like, that's it. I'm breaking free. I'm going to jump without a safety net, get the fuck out of this situation, and start being credited properly.
So Cross My Line and I Will Win are, for all intents and purposes, diss tracks.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. Wow, that's crazy. Okay. Well,
yeah. I know That's the real story.
So I know that you did so much more music in Power Rangers, and I know you did, including Go Green Ranger Go. Did you also do the Dragon Zord riff?
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah, I know it.
I mean, there's no way, because had it pre-existed, there's no way Saban would have given up the rights on any part of the music. So
right. Yeah.
It had to be.
I knew it. I went deep looking for research on if that was ever credited to anybody, and I was like, it's got to be Ron.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing out there.
Nobody's ever really asked about it, and I kind of forgot. It was probably something I banged out in 5 minutes, and then the music editor put it in from that point on.
I bet, man. That's a legendary riff. I mean, it came on the toy. You know what I mean?
With the Dragon Dagger, the Green Ranger can summon the Mighty Dragon Zord.
Oh, yeah. A lot of stuff I would hear on toys. I have a few things like the gloves.
Yeah.
Make a sound, and the watch that played the theme and all that kind of stuff stored away somewhere.
Now you can get the power with your own Power Rangers gloves with built-in Karate Chop sound effects. Just squeeze the button.
The theme is my ringtone.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Great.
I've heard you say that there were accusations that the music was causing kids to get violent, and that either the Clintons or the Gores, who were friends with Haim Saban, asked that the songs not be so dark. No more minor chords, no more words like fight, things like that. Where were these complaints coming from? Like, were there news interviews? Were parents writing in? Because this is like early 90s. Yeah. You couldn't just post it on social. Where were these complaints coming from?
There were news stories. There was something that happened, I think, in Norway. And people have straightened me out on what actually happened. But apparently a couple of brothers either kicked their sister to death or just kicked her until she was beaten senseless while singing a Power Rangers song. So, of course,
and thereby they blamed the song.
Yeah. And when I heard that, I said, get me on CNN with the parents. It'll take 5 minutes and you'll see it's going to be the parenting. If it was one boy, okay, maybe got out of control. Still, you can't blame music. But if you have 2 violent kids kicking the shit out of their sister, or whatever it was,
it's not the music.
It's not the music. It's the environment that they're in.
That's crazy.
And they were blaming, and Haim came out with a lot of stuff saying, when I was about the show itself, because he got a lot of crap for it. He goes, it's a latex pig they're beating up.
Yeah, seriously.
This isn't really violent. It's just action. It's fun.
Exactly, yeah. And it's not about them beating up an innocent kid. They're beating up bad guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts, man. So how was that then communicated to you? Did Haim Saban come and say, listen, man, no more minor chords?
No, it was Ron Kanan. He came in, he goes, Bill Clinton, all the fundraisers are at Haim's house. They're very close, and they're getting, anyways, no more bad words. And he never said exactly who said it, but it definitely came. So I always chose to think that the White House had a meeting about me and said, what are we going to do? We got to get Wasserman get rid of those minor chords. I went, this is like the church in the 16th century. No more minor chords because it invokes the devil. He's crazy.
Dude, you're probably still on a watch list.
I hope so. That would be great. Oh, if I had an FBI file, how fun.
But by accident, they put New York Ron on the watch list instead of you.
Yeah, he's screwed.
So when you got that information, did you put up any resistance, or were you very much like, I want to keep my job, your wish is my command?
No, I felt kind of flattered. I mean, really, that not only did I bring sort of metal to a kid's show, kind of aggressive stuff, how nice that it came from that far up. I mean, and so I went, okay, I won't use those words anymore. Plus, how many times more could I use those words anyways? It was time. So it just shot me in a new direction.
Right.
So I was able to keep the edge and some of the angst and the message. I just had to be a little bit more encrypted with the message and kind of do it all with a smile.
Right.
And it worked. I mean, I will win is such a positive, uplifting, I will win, I won't stop. And meanwhile, I'm screaming this thing out like, I'm going to fucking make it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to leave here. I mean, it's an angry song, but it comes off as...
Yeah. I would have never guessed the backstory for it for sure. Yeah.
I was pissed. I was like tired and angry.
So in 1995, you left Saban, and now we all know why. We just heard. It was around that time that you got tapped to score Dragon Ball Z. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a show that they called from Saban. I ended up still doing stuff. I just couldn't do the regular grind anymore. And they called and they said, we have this show called Dragon Ball Z that nobody gives a fuck about. You want to score it at home? And I said, yeah, I'll score it at home. So I just scored them at home and just blew through it. Never had a single note, not a thing. Nobody even cared. It just went straight to the mix stage. They threw it in under everything. And that was it. I had no idea how big the show was.
That's so nuts, man. Do you have one kid? Is that correct?
Yeah, one 19-year-old son.
He's 19. Okay, so that's why. If you had a kid that was my age, then you would have known. Because my early teenage years, that was when when Dragon Ball Z popped off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until 2010, you didn't realize that it was a successful thing.
Not a clue. I didn't even know X-Men was a thing.
Wow.
I had no idea because people started writing about it. I didn't hear anything for 15 years about it, at least.
Wow.
I had no clue, not a clue. And like I said, I don't watch much stuff. I've had to do it a few times. I've never watched anything, the final mix broadcast.
Yeah.
I never watch anything I've ever scored because I always get uncomfortable.
Wow. I guess that's just like a lot of actors that don't like watching themselves on screen. It's the same principle. Wow.
And I'm always working on, there's always the next project. There's something every day.
To keep you occupied.
So,
yeah. Okay. So around that time, you started working with another legendary musician, Bob Ezrin.
Oh, yeah.
How did you meet Bob? And was it through Bob that you started working with Seventh Level to do the computer games?
Yeah. There was a guy named Paul Ray who was a music editor part-time at Saban. So when I left, he said, hey, I just got a gig over with Bob Ezrin and Scotty Page, who played sax for Pink Floyd.
Wow.
And he said they started a gaming company. And I told him about you. So I met with Bob and Scotty. And I just said, crazy cool studio in Burbank, like a giant warehouse.
Wow.
And they said, we're starting a gaming company. You want to do it? And I said, yeah. But there were terrible restrictions because it was PC games and you had to use something called General MIDI.
Oh,
so the
man.
sounds,
Yeah,
it sucked. And, you had to have a sound card in a PC.
Yeah.
But it was fun. So I think I did Tamaguchi first, then Ace Ventura, then 2 Monty Python titles. And then the final thing before, unfortunately, that Seventh Level went bankrupt was something called Battle Beast, which was pretty badass.
Okay.
But
okay. I'll have to check it out.
I don't know if it even came out. And then Bob introduced me to John Anderson, who was the lead singer for a band called Yes. And I ended up spending 2 years with him during the days doing a couple of indie records with him.
Oh, wow. Okay. Check that
It was
out.
super fun.
And around that same time, what was your connection into, is it Deke Entertainment? I mean,
it's Deke. I know.
Okay. Everyone is it Dick Entertainment? Just DIC? Okay. So Deke Entertainment.
I have no idea why he named it that. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Again, somebody, I think they called and said, you want to write a couple songs for Sailor Moon? And I went, okay,
what?
I'll do that. And then they said, hey, we have this show, and we have this show. And then by 2000, I think I owned CBS Saturday Morning because it was all run by Deke.
Yeah.
So they had Horseland, Dino Squad, Mummies Alive.
Mummies Alive, yo. Underrated show, underrated theme.
Little boy named Presley found a secret out this year that he was once a pharaoh when Egyptians ruled the world, and now some sorcerer named Scarab tries to get him.
Oh, yeah, that's a great theme.
Amazing. Do you have any anecdotes from Mummies Alive?
Yeah, I think so some sorcerer named Scarab. Scarab? I can't remember. I think I accidentally called him Scarab, and that was their note. When I delivered it, they go, what the fuck did you say? So I had to go back and replace the word or maybe the line. Other than that, if they had said, try something else on that show, I would have said, there is nothing else. I've got the mummy sound in the background, the haunted this is a perfect theme for this show.
Oh, yeah. It absolutely was. Nailed it.
And then I just remember I would just go to, when I had satellite, I would just look at Saturday morning. I'd go, cool, Horseland, Dino Squad, Mummies Alive, the Coolopolis theme. I mean, I said, so it was nice for a couple years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun.
Around that same time, you had Fisher going on with your girlfriend, who would go on to be your wife.
Yeah.
And you guys had a track called Breakable that was in the soundtrack for the movie Great Expectations.
Which was written that night. I forgot to bring it up after I wrote the Power Ranger theme. That's a song.
That was the song.
On. That's a song.
Wow. So in one night, two amazing things happened.
Two. Yeah.
Wow.
And I had some of the basic lyrics, and I think she wrote a majority of the lyrics on that.
That's crazy, man. Wow.
We had we were very good friends and, ended up married and having a kid, but we had a lot of our songs are about our relationship. So Breakable is her admission in a way of saying, why do you always think that I'm reacting this way when I abuse you in some way? Not that she was abusive. I don't want to diss her at all.
Right.
But when she was a bit harsh or pushing too hard, and I would kind of get emotional about it. So that's what that track's about.
Whoa, that's deep, man.
That's why she starts off with, do you always have to tell him everything on your mind? You know that too much truth can be so unkind.
Wow. The BTS right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
The coolest thing that I thought about the story of that song is that mp3.com is what blew it up.
Yeah.
That's like the most 90s thing ever. I mean, think about, you guys have had to be some of the earliest musicians to go viral, quote unquote, from the internet before going viral was even a term. Because, that was early stages of artists getting big from the internet, right? I mean, now it's so commonplace. Like TikTok is available and TikTok will let people decide what's cool. And so many artists get big from that. But you guys were maybe the first in terms of...
We absolutely were.
Yeah, there you go. You absolutely were, to the point where it got so big just from the internet that people were calling into radio stations to request it. And then media started coming to interview you. And it was the record companies that followed the media, which, that's the model that happens now.
I mean, it was crazy. We lived up in the mountains, and my studio was like a stack of computers.
Yeah.
And Time magazine called and said, we want to come up and get pictures of you guys in the studio. I said, it's not what you're thinking, the studio. It looks more like an office. And Time magazine came up and looked and went, yeah, you're right. So they did pictures outside because we lived in this cool place in the mountains.
That's mad funny.
But I was like, oh my God, and CNN would call. We want to do a story on you, this, that. And then the record companies started calling. And by this time, I knew that business so well.
Right.
I wanted one thing because I knew the failure rate was so high.
Yeah.
So I wanted the rights back to our indie record, which was going to be pretty identical to the major label release. I wanted it back if we terminated after one record. We had a great ride. We were blowing up at radio. The gigs were getting bigger, but they had distribution problems, which I proved to Interscope. The CDs are not available. They can't get them. Turned out to be a manufacturing issue. The record company said, it's not that. Let's do another CD. And I said, fuck that. If I walk out now, I own these songs again. So I terminated it. But up to that point, I had a lot of power. I was telling heads of record companies, this is what I wanted. They would say no, and I'd say, I'm passing. Atlantic Records, A&M, all these other labels. But then the head of Universal Music, Doug Morris, said, of course, you'll be with us forever. So it'll be fine. He goes, you're going to get a Grammy off of this song called I Will Love You. And he goes, it's not even an issue.
Wow.
So it worked. Thank God.
Yeah.
He went for it.
It came at the right time in your life, because at that point you had enough experience to know what to ask for and to know what to, hold out for.
Oh, and for all the just the misleading crap that I was had to go through with record labels, and all my friends went through just the bullshit.
Yeah.
It all came to me. I'm like, I am getting this one concession.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to concede on this one thing, and it worked out great.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, there was no way. I can remember telling a record company head, I can't remember his name. I said, I passed. He goes, well, let's talk again Monday. I said, what part of I passed don't you understand? I don't want to be on your label.
I passed.
I said, you won't do this. That's it. I said, we don't talk Monday unless you call me back and say you're doing this. I mean, I was like so brave, but I'm walking around my driveway in West Hollywood in a circle smoking, going like, I can't believe I'm talking to a record company guy like this. But you come off like that and they'd want you even more.
Absolutely, man. Because I'm sure he was not used to that whatsoever.
Oh, hell no.
So you have that run, go forward a couple of years. In 2005 is when you come back to do Power Rangers SPD.
Oh, it was Disney.
Right, it was Disney at that point. Okay, I'm imagining that's part of the reason that you came back. If it was still Saban, you might not have. Is that correct?
Well, I would have had, they'd given me my fair share.
Right, okay, if it was right.
I don't know if they ever did that, ever, but for people who worked with them. But with Disney, of course, it's above board, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
These companies always take half the right. They own it.
Yep.
But they always get half of the back end from it. They take the publishing. That's how it is. Nobody escapes that unless you're John Williams or Hans Zimmer, I think, or huge.
It's just the way it goes.
But it's fine. Yeah, but they called and they said, we want kind of that sound. We're looking to punch things up. It's hysterical. I mean, so it took like a day. I heard it in my head and recorded it into, if I had a phone at that time, I can't remember, into probably handheld recorders and just blew it out.
Wow.
The only note was put some sirens on it. So I put sirens on it.
Was that the theme where you also did a rap version of it that nobody was really feeling?
No, that's the following year.
Okay.
There was a Power Rangers Mystic Force. I did a rock one. They said, everybody loves it. Then they called a few days later, the same guy, wonderful guy named Steve Vincent. He said, some of the producers now have it in their head to have a rap version. I said, well, I'll try it, but it is going to suck. So just put the C in front of rap. It's going to be total crap.
There's evil in the forest, in the trees, darkness breeds. Who can save the universe? Power Ranger Mystic Force.
And I did something, and I said, I think even in the email, I probably just said, this is more just as a joke. He called me back and goes, you're right, it's terrible.
Well,
I said, so why don't you go back to the rock thing? The rock thing was great. And that was the last time.
Okay.
You know, they went with the rap thing, and it was, I guess, I don't know. I don't know what people think.
Well, when did you first start working on SpongeBob?
I cannot remember. It would have been, let me look. It would have been around 2011, 2012. A friend of mine, Nick Carr, who was also a music editor at Saban, was the main music editor and started composing for SpongeBob. And he would call me and say, we have the scene that I think you'll be great for in the haunted toy store.
Hell yeah.
And then there's like a wrestling match. He goes, so dude, I want some rock stuff for that. And I started doing more and more. And then the three of us, there was another composer, and we were going to kind of take over the show and do all the music for it. And Nickelodeon was cool with it. But then the music editor guy all of a sudden said, no, I don't want to do that. I think he wanted to kind of keep it for himself. It's cool. He had been doing the show for 10 years already. So it was a bit of a shock to me, but no big deal.
It happens.
It happens.
You know, having the career that you had, who are some of your favorite peers that you admire? Like specifically other composers for film and TV. Who's top for you?
Oh man, like Randy Newman is a genius.
Yeah.
Carter Burwell. And there's another Newman that does the beautiful piano work. I can't believe I'm not remembering his name.
I know you're talking about. It's the dude that did Doug, right?
Yeah, it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. And now again, his name is escaping. Whoever scored Breaking Bad, I think it's the same guy, Dave Porter, and did Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
Everything I hear, because of course I always hear the score in that show, was just perfectly appropriate and beautifully executed and always kind of fresh.
Yep.
So he must drive himself crazy like I do, saying, okay, this time I'm going to shift it a little bit this way or add this new sound. I really respect those guys so much. And of course, the king is John Williams.
Facts, big facts.
The king. I mean, no, there is nobody like John Williams, and there never will be.
You just named a whole lot of legends, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any shows or films that you would have loved to work on that you didn't get the opportunity to, that maybe you came close to, or just never happened? And what are some that are in the future that are on your list?
Two things. I almost had King of the Hill. I had submitted kind of that acoustic guitar stuff.
Yeah.
But they gave it to somebody else. And when I heard the show, I went, well, it's not like I know the guy who did it. I mean, there's no way he's copied. It was an influence for me. The show dictated the type of sound it needed.
Sure, yeah.
And that kind of kick, for lack of a better term, acoustic guitar type playing. So I almost had that. And I almost had the theme for, I can't remember if it was The Office or Parks and Recreation. That was a punch to the gut, because they said, hey, they love it. It looks like they're going to go with your theme. And then at the last second, they went with another person. And we're like,
damn.
So those have been my two biggest losses, especially King of the Hill. That would have just been great to do that. I loved that show.
Yeah, that would have been. So is that how it generally works? Like, because I've heard you say that you've never had an agent. So do people just contact you directly and they're like, hey, can you run me up a demo for this?
Yeah, that's how it happens. And if you've worked with them, then they'll call and say, so this is the next project coming up. And it's just always kind of flows. It keeps floating off into new universes with new people, and they have projects going on right now. I'm writing stuff for reality TV, which really kicked in because there's a writer's strike going on, which will be a minimum of 30 days, probably much longer. And so
if 2008 is any indicator, it could be a bit longer. Yeah.
It's going to be, the business is shut down now for a while.
Yeah.
So I still have plenty I can do, but it's just so I don't know what's next. I have a few things that hopefully aren't going to be destroyed that were coming up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't 100% for certain yet, but very close. But I had to sign non-disclosure agreements on everything, so I can't discuss it. And then a video game I've been working on for 5 years, which he promises will finally come out February next year, called The Next World, which is amazing.
I'll be looking out for it.
Yeah. That one's really, really brilliant. I mean, everything about that game is great. He's just got to finish it and plan the marketing and all that kind of crap. Yeah, I've done about 10, 11 hours of score for that over the last couple of years, mostly cyberpunk stuff. A lot of fun doing that.
I remember you said you usually don't watch the projects that you scored. Do you ever play the games?
No.
Wow.
No. This one I might. But I don't know if I'm going to ever get past the first 30 seconds, because I have, that's why it was good that I was a musician growing up too. I was horrible at sports. I don't have that kind of coordination.
I hear you.
So I don't think they'll have piano. I've got it, but everything else, I'm kind of a dork. So, but my kid will. And so I'll watch him do it.
There you go. If you could bring back one thing from the 90s, what would it be?
I would love to bring, this is going to sound kind of weird. I would love there to be real, direct, clear, honest news.
Wow.
That I'd like to bring back, because that's long gone. And I'm not dissing Fox or CNN, all of it. It's all a show now.
Yeah.
And there used to be a time where there was actual, real reporting and news.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's a good answer.
Yeah. That's what I would bring back. And I'm not like, I breeze through the headlines. It's not like any obsession.
Yeah.
But man, it's just gone.
Yeah, it sure is.
Along with so many other things. So yeah, that's what I would bring back.
What are the chances that I get you to produce a beat for me someday?
Oh, pretty damn good.
Really? Because that would be, that would be amazing.
You know what would be fun is if you recorded like even part, or just did your vocal over whatever track, whatever, just drums, anything.
Yeah.
And it would be fun for me to build the track under it.
Yo, I'm so down with that.
Yeah, that may destroy it, and you may go, how am I going to tell him this isn't working? But, that may very well happen. But I think it'd be fun.
That would be so much fun. Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, it probably won't be standard. It'll definitely, because I score, so I'm going to I would throw other elements in, but it might be, who knows?
Well, that's what I want, the Ron Wasserman touch,
Maybe I'm the next Dr. Dre.
There you go, man. Have you ever produced like straight hip hop before?
No, never.
This is going to be amazing. Okay, I can't wait. You just made my day with that answer, so I'm looking forward to it.
I think it'd truly be fun. I'd be totally into doing that. Nobody's ever asked me. I think I'd love to. It'd be fun.
Sweet, man. Okay, thank you. Well, Ron, man, I want to say thank you for taking the time to do this, and I want to say thank you on behalf of my entire generation for giving us some of the best music of our childhood. You always sent our adrenaline through the roof. I think it's really cool that I've heard you say you reply to every email because the keyboard player from Chicago once replied to a letter of yours and you like to pay it forward. I think that says a lot about you, and it's the whole reason that we're even doing this podcast today because you replied to my message. So thank you so much, Ron.
Oh, thank you. I've had a great time.
I'm glad to hear it, man. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm all grown up.
SYKE!
Woo! That was a good psych, man. I'm all grown up. SYKE!